When it comes to listening, there is one critical mindset, and it's that your intent is going to be everything. I realized this firsthand. I broke up with a relationship that I'd had for about 3 years last year, and I was starting off on the initial dates that I had. What I realized is they were not going very well. In fact, it was one of the times in my life where I was having the least success with women that I would meet and date in terms of actually forming a connection. And it took probably a month or so after I had started dating before I started having better dates. And really what shifted was inside of me, because my intent when I had just broken up was to not feel sad, was to find someone else that I liked. And I really wasn't doing a good job of connecting, of being actually engaged and interested in the specifics of this person's life and what they valued. And really, I was just looking for someone to distract me from the sadness that I felt. Now, after a month when things started to shift, I found that I actually started having much better dates, because I'd gotten through that initial period of just trying to find someone that I liked, to care about, and sort of settled into what it was going to be like to be completely single again. And when I went on these dates, my mindset did a 180. And all of a sudden, I was very interested in who this person was. I didn't necessarily expect for us to date, but I wanted to find out about the people that I was going on dates with so that I could find out if there was any chance for a connection there. And I found that these were some dates where I did the least amount of talking than any sort of interaction that I'm used to. In fact, I remember one where a girl had just gotten back from Burning Man, and I spent the entire time listening, occasionally asking questions about it. And that wound up being someone that I dated for several months and actually formed a good mini relationship, if you will, though it did, of course, end because it's not still going today. That is A-okay. The point here is that your intent, what are you trying to do when you're listening? Are you using this as a tool in order to just get someone to like you? Or can you put that on pause and genuinely be curious about why other people do what they do? This is tough. There's no technique here, is the truth. And I'm going to give you some tips later. But really, you have to become interested in other people. If you're not, and if you're using this as a ploy or a technique, I can tell you all of the best questions in the world, but it's going to fall flat. Instead, when you can get interested in why they did that, what was their motivation, how do they make the decisions that they make, where are they likely to be going in the future, and you're actually curious and you want to know what makes people tick in the same way that I'm fascinated by the breakdowns that I do, that is going to be what allows you to actually connect with people. When you are genuinely trying to dig up their motivations, when you're fascinated by their story. And one of the things that I found is in some of these dates, these would be first dates, but we would wind up speaking about breakups that we have, taboo topics often for a first date. We talk about what went wrong, what we wish we did better. The fact that some of the times the date that I went on, she was having a hard time getting over the person that she had broken up with previously. These are all things that they tell you, don't talk about that on the first date. But you can break those rules when you're not doing it in order to just emotionally dump on someone, but when you're curious and when you want to see how their values align with yours. So, how do you do this? How do you start to drive down once you've entered into that mindset? Well, what you typically want to do are find out why they did the things they do, right? These are the why questions. So if you're talking about work, why did you pick that job? What do you love about your job? What made you want to leave, right? These don't necessarily have why in the question, but they are burrowing down into the reasons that people do the things that they do. If you're talking about a breakup, right? If you're genuinely interested, you can ask, well, if you don't mind telling me, what went wrong? Who was the person that felt like it needed to end? How do you feel now? And an absolutely critical mindset, if you're going to go into these more vulnerable, taboo things, first off, this is going to be much easier to do one-on-one than in a group. Because in a group, you're not sure who's judging you. One-on-one, you can read the other person, which brings me to the second mindset, which is you need to drop judgment. This was much harder for me to do when I was looking to give advice or to see how this person stacked up against me. When you can drop that judgment and actually be interested in why they're doing what they're doing and you're just curious and you want to know, that makes it much easier. And the third piece, which is critical, is they have to have some baseline level of interest and liking towards you. This is where the first impressions module comes in. If you just walk up to a stranger and you start asking them deeply penetrating questions, as I've seen some people try to do at these sorts of house parties, it's a little bit uncomfortable and weird. You don't trust them. But if you do this stuff in the first impressions module, after 2 minutes, 3 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, you can very, very quickly shift into these deeper questions. And remember, you have to drop the judgment because the intent is everything.